So here on Tracefellow, I build and ride really cheap road bikes with really cheap group sets. So on a recent trip, I decided to push the boat out and I hired the fastest UCI legal road bike in the world. Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty interesting choice, actually. Also, you might notice I cut myself shaving earlier. You'd think as a 36-year-old man, I'd have that sort of thing figured out. At this point, well, you'd be wrong. My name, as always, is Luke, and welcome back to Tracefellow. So I was lucky enough to be out in Majorca last week for a bit of a holiday, and I managed to get 2 days out to do a bit of cycling. Now, Majorca mid-June is kind of off-season for cycling, really. People tend to go either March, April, or October, November. Needless to say, it was really stinking hot while I was out there, but I had to get a bit of cycling in, so I decided to rent a kind of type of bike that I wouldn't normally tend to ride otherwise. So it's gonna hit 32 degrees C today, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty toasty, but we'll see if I survive. Hopefully I will. I mean, it looks pretty amazing out there, but it's gonna be hot, that's for sure. First things first, I've got to pick up the bike. Before that though, coffee time. So yeah, let's have a bit of brekkie and then we'll crack on. So a little bit of coffee and something to eat and we are off to pick up the bike. Now, those that watch my stuff will know, like I said, I ride a lot of really cheap road bikes. So all the parts are generally from AliExpress, frame, wheels, group sets, etc. So I always use trips like this to get a good baseline by renting a really nice name brand bike. Now, there were a lot of endurance style bikes in the rental shops. So when I use the term endurance, I'm referring to a bike a bit like this, my daily driver here. It's got some compliance and comfort built into the frame, and it's not a super racy geometry. A good all-rounder, if you catch my drift. For example, the new Scott Addict was everywhere in all the rental shops. But I ride endurance style bikes all the time. I wanted to try something a little bit different, and here it is, the Cannondale SystemSix. It's a really stiff, aero-focused race bike with a really high price tag as well, so definitely not something I get the chance to ride every day. But the roads in Majorca are famously nice and smooth, so this style of bike was going to be the perfect choice for the style of riding I was going to do, right? Or so he thought. Hopefully that added a bit of drama. Kind of see what I'm trying to get at here. Now, the rental shop was at the top of Port de Polenta, so straight out the shop, we're off to the tip of the island here, Cap De Formentor, a very famous bike route, and for very good reason as well. Yeah, let's do this. So pretty much straight into a climb as we head out towards the lighthouse at the tip of the island, and almost immediately I felt the heat, about 11 a.m. at this point, and 30 degrees C. You can't really see it, but the sweat was already pouring. Now, at the top of the first climb, the bike felt good, not the lightest setup in the world. It's an aero bike after all, chunky down tubes and deep section wheels, but my legs were fresh and the views were nothing short of spectacular, so I absolutely wasn't complaining. But anyway, let's crack on. So the first bit of descending here, some lovely switchbacks on the road, but unfortunately I got stuck behind some traffic, but not a big deal. It did give me a chance to kind of feel out the bike a little bit on the corners. I didn't want to go hell for leather kind of straight away, but the first thing I noticed pretty quickly. So these brakes are the other way around. This is front, this is rear. I normally have them the other way around, so I keep locking up the back. So yeah, I had to commit that to muscle memory pretty quickly. But as we're talking brakes, let's have a look at the shifters on this bike, because they're really cool and they're actually one of the main reasons I chose this thing. So in the rental shops for the higher spec bikes that I was looking at renting, it was Ultegra Di2 pretty much exclusively as the group set, which is great. I love electronic shifting. Ultegra Di2 is pretty much guaranteed to be like perfection, really. But again, I wanted to try something that I'd not used before. And this is what I ended up with, Dura-Ace R9120, hydraulic disc brake, but 11-speed mechanical shifting. Released in 2016, it's the last Dura-Ace group set to feature cable-actuated gears. So basically, it represents the absolute pinnacle of mechanical shifting from Shimano. And although I was only a couple of miles into it at this point, I was incredibly
impressed. The shifting action is so light and precise. Even for the front derailleur, the amount of force needed to change into the big chainring wasn't much more than downshifting at the rear. I mean, the more I used it, I kept thinking to myself, when mechanical is this good, who needs electronic shifting? Absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, let's get to the lighthouse.
I can go through, right? Yeah, thank you. Hola. This is crazy. This is crazy. Kind of in the cloud cover now. That is a welcome relief.
So up to this point, riding was, pretty straightforward. Nothing crazy, lots of gentle uphill with some steady descending. But round this corner, things got a little bit dicey. Down to the lighthouse, the wind really picked up.
Whoa, the wind! I don't like that. I don't like that.
Hopefully you can see the shadow of the clouds kind of racing over the tarmac. It might not come across, but at this point, I really felt just how large the kind of side profile area of the bike was. 65mm deep wheels on the front and the back, and combine that with the really deep section Aero focused frame design, it caught the wind so much. It wasn't like gale force winds by any stretch, but I had to really scrub the speed off at times down here. It felt like I was riding a barn door, to be honest. It was quite unnerving actually, and sort of knocked my confidence a bit. You expect to be able to sort of flow down the descents on a bike like this, but it was quite twitchy and the wind easily took you off the line you sort of wanted to take. Anyway, up at the lighthouse, views were incredible. This is one of the most famous roads for cycling in the world, really, and hopefully you can see why. Absolutely spectacular. Anyway, scoffed the banana to keep my energy up, slapped the peel straight in the bin, and obviously accosted an unsuspecting member of the Spanish public for a few obligatory glamour shots on the bike. I mean, look at that man right there. What an absolute specimen. Anyway, with that done, we've got to retrace exactly the same route that I took out and head back inland.
Now, at this point on the ride, it was just before noon, and yeah, the sun was really baking down. It was hitting about 32, 35 degrees C, and I was getting a bit worried about the back of my neck. I usually try and take something like this with me. It's a light microfiber neck scarf. I've burnt the back of my neck so many times on rides like this. You kind of get your head down for a few miles, and then the next thing you know, you've really badly burnt the back of your neck. So something like this really helps keep the sun off and doesn't actually warm you up that much in my experience. But I'd left this at home, annoyingly. So earlier in the morning, my wife proposed a genius solution. Take one baby grow from Primark, cut the arms off, and you have in your possession an emergency neck scarf. It's lightweight cotton to the untrained eye. Doesn't look like a baby grow apart from the little poppers. Get mad respect from other dads. Phenomenal.
Right, it's time to put on this baby grow neck warmer.
Right, look at that. I think it looks pretty good actually.
And I'll try and get a picture of the back.
Hopefully you can see the back covers my neck.
I call that an absolute win, actually. Right, let's crack on.
So yeah, the ride back was lovely. The heat was building, but with such incredible views, I didn't really mind. I accidentally recorded this gratuitous slow-mo, so yeah, enjoy this. But the route was beautiful and the bike was performing well. Riding down this section, I'm tucking in, trying to kind of cheat the wind, and something about this bike, it carries the speed on the flats so effortlessly. The aero characteristics obviously help out in this regard, but I think some of it is the weight as well. At about 8.6, maybe 8.7 kilograms, the inertia I'm carrying is a bit more than I'm used to, but either way, it flies on the straights, especially on this perfect tarmac. I was able to pretty easily hold 25, 30 mile an hour without too much effort. Anyway, after one final climb, I'm back near the start and I parked up the bike for a bite of lunch. So feeling out the bike that morning, I was pretty happy. The braking is great, as you would expect. The shifting is unreal, but it does catch the wind a lot and it is quite sluggish on the climbs, I found. Now, the roads so far have been like glass, really. So while the bike is incredibly stiff and uncompromising, I hadn't really been penalised for that just yet. Also, I met a lovely couple, Ollie and Kate, but I forgot to get a picture. They were standing right here 2 minutes before, so please accept this goat queuing for ice cream as a stand-in. Oh, and on this last corner, down to the lighthouse earlier, you might have seen this little sign. Basically, a photographer camps here to get shots. And look at these. I never get any pickies of me on the bike because I'm an absolute loser. I cycle by myself the whole time. But yeah, how cool are these? Anyway, the route back into town is a lovely descent. And as I said, the bike is really stiff and can be quite twitchy at times. But on the downhill with gentle corners and minimal crosswind, it can feel quite planted actually. But anyway, on to the next stop.
Okay, cool. So we are doing pretty well so far, actually. So I'm about to go up this. Oh, look, there's a family of goats coming down the road. Anyway, I'm about to head up this big climb. It's called Cap De Femenia. So it's a massive hill. I've got loads of water. I've got 2 full bottles, and I've got a Lucozade, well, Gatorade in the bag as well.
Powerade.
I think I'm in good stead. It is incredibly toasty, so I'm gonna stick on some more sun cream. Stop myself burning because I'm constantly facing this side. The sun's hitting this side of my face, so I feel like I'm gonna burn on one side. So yeah, got the factor 50 to slap on. But this bike, really enjoying using it. Got a few notes on it for sure, but it is incredibly nice on the flats. Anyway, let's see how well it does on this massive climb we are coming up. So yeah, let's crack on.
So this climb, it's a category 2 with 450 meters, basically vertical. The average gradient is about 5% and it's about 10k long. Didn't sound too crazy when I was sort of planning the route, but in the heat, yeah, it was killer. Now you might notice I'm wearing a cycle cap in all these shots, which might seem a bit silly in this heat, but I found it really helps keep the sweat out of my face. It tends to drip off the peak of the cap rather than directly running into my eyes, blinding me with like caustic sweat and sun cream. So I find it really helps on days like this. Also, if you fancy any of the gear that I'm wearing in these shots, check out my sponsor, Sirocco. It's wicked cycle gear for a decent cost. This SRX Pro jersey that I'm wearing was worth its weight in gold on this ride. Super light fabric, helps kind of wick the sweat away and really helps keep you comfortable in the heat. Also, these glasses are new. They're pretty spenny, to be honest, at 92 quid, but they are really nice. Very comfortable even with helmet, cycle cap and headphones. Plus with this slight ridge along the top, they stay just off your face so don't get smeared with like sweat and sun cream while you're riding, which really helps. Anyway, link in the description will get you 10% off all their gear. So yeah, check it out if you fancy it.
So I'm about halfway up the big climb. The heat is killer. I think it's about, yeah, must be 32, 33 and there's no wind. So, and yeah, no shade either. You can see the sun's just like directly above. But once again, this little baby grow working wonders. Plenty of fluids, loads of sun cream. Let's smash it. See you at the top.
20 minutes later.
Okay, so I've had to stop for another quick breather. I think I'm nearly there. This sun is, oh, it's hot today. A little bit of a breeze, which is nice. And as much as I'm tempted to like absolutely give it welly up there, I don't want to get like heat stroke or anything like that. So keeping top to fluids, taking it easy. Cause yeah, it's killer out here today. I think that's it. Get in. Some of the fun bit now. Let's get this descent done.
Right, as we're on the way down, let's talk about this bike on the climbs. Honestly, it's not great. I mean, the group set is lovely, nicely dialed in, and shifting under power isn't a problem, but it's just the wrong bike for this style of ride. It's a race bike at the end of the day, really stiff, pretty heavy, and does feel sluggish, regardless of what Cannondale says in the marketing. Not ideal for big climbs like this, in my opinion. But that aside, the route down was absolutely amazing. Again, views were incredible, and this section had a few nice switchbacks on the road. I still wasn't massively confident with this bike on the corners though, so I didn't lean it over much. Plus, I was starting to realise it was really twitchy on the front end. Coupling that with the really stiff overall feel, it wasn't particularly sort of smooth and fluid round these tight corners. Thankfully, the roads, again, were like glass. Virtually zero imperfections, but even so, at this point, about 4 hours in, my butt was starting to ache so much. The seat post is a super chunky carbon jobby, almost like a box section, so offers virtually, well, zero flex and compliance, really. Towards the end of the ride, I flew through a couple of lovely villages, and the roads, while still great, did have a few potholes and speed bumps, and anytime I faced this, I just stood on the pedals to get off the saddle. My bum was really feeling it. There were only a few kilometers left at this point, and to be honest, even though the ride itself was incredible overall, I was absolutely desperate to get off and walk around. The last road up to our little villa was a gravel track, and by this point I was done.
I almost felt a bit guilty at this point, if I'm honest with you. On paper, it should have been one of those rides where I want to stay out all day, if you know what I mean. My legs were fine, but that bike, it definitely got the best of me. Planning the route for the next day, you can see I avoided the hills at all costs. It's not a strong point for this bike, in my opinion, so yeah, I just stayed on the flat.
Riding around though, the one thing that did really annoy me, these gel packets were everywhere. Like, I know people are riding hard trying to get PBs and stuff, and maybe they drop them by accident, but I get the feeling a lot of people just suck them down and chuck them over their shoulder. Like, come on, put it in your pocket after you're done with it. It's not difficult. Seeing random litter like this on the side of the road really annoys me. Anyway, as we're talking gels, I did face a little issue this ride.
So unfortunately, I went through all the gels that I had with me yesterday, and I tried to look for some in the supermarket, but they didn't have any. But we have brought our little baby daughter along with us on this little trip, so I have an interesting alternative.
Ella's Kitchen lip smacking spag bowl with cheese. Yeah, it's organic. It's got lots of protein in here, and it's 7 months plus, so it should be absolutely fine. And it's in a nice little carry pouch as well. So let's give it a go.
Right, I think I could be onto something here. Let's give it a taste. I've eaten worse things on a ride, I'll say that much.
I mean, it's got broccoli, high in protein, 5 veggies. Yeah, I'm onto something, definitely.
Anyway, fueled up by that lip-smacking cheesy spag bowl, let's crack on. Thankfully, it was all on the flats today, so I felt like I could really take advantage of what this bike was designed to do. It ate up the miles, and I've got to admit, it is a nice-looking bike. You certainly look like you know what you're doing when you're riding this thing. Again, the heat was absolutely crazy, but the scenery was lovely, and the little villages were so picturesque. 50 miles later, I dropped the bike off back at the rental shop, an absolute sweaty mess. But all in all, I was really proud of myself. I didn't get any KOMs on Strava or anything like that, but over 2 days, 100 miles in nearly 40 degrees C heat. It was tough, but I kept my head down and got it done. I didn't pass out, I didn't get a sunburn, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
The main takeaway for me, this bike is not really for a casual weekend ride. I figured it would be a racy bike to use, but I wasn't prepared for quite how harsh the ride was going to be. I mean, looking at it objectively, it makes sense, right? Super chunky Aero seat post, massive box section, frame tubes, really chunky bottom bracket area, and relatively narrow 26C tires. It's built for speed, not comfort and compliance, but I wasn't prepared for just how unforgiving it was going to be. As mentioned, getting the power down on the flats, it absolutely flies like nothing else I've ever ridden, really. But with such a sort of purpose-built frame and geometry in virtually all other areas of the ride, it almost felt like I was being penalized for choosing that bike, if you kind of see what I mean. But still, I'm really, really pleased I chose it. It's always good to try something new and kind of see what else is out there. The other takeaway, that Dura-Ace group set, wow. I mean, I was blown away. The shifting was perfection. It was quiet, reliable, quick. The cross-chaining was fine, and shifting under power wasn't a problem. I might have to buy one of those group sets, actually. But talking to the guys in the shop, it does sound like they're gonna upgrade that bike to Ultegra Di2 anyway, at some point in the future. But one thing they did differently with that bike when setting it up is that for the gear cables, they run the housing all the way through the bike frame. When I'm building up my bikes, I always use the frame stops, so only the gear cable itself runs through the actual frame of the bike. Well, it's a little bit lighter, and I find it's a bit easier to set up that way as well. But after riding that thing, I think I might have to update my approach, to be honest with you. So let me know, when you're building up your bikes with mechanical shifting, do you also run the housing all the way through the frame, and sort of do you see any benefit? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on that one, actually. Anyway, I hope you sort of like this more vloggy style of video. It's very different to the kind of format of videos I normally put together. So yeah, let me know what you think. All criticisms are welcome, unless they're really mean, and I might have a little cry. Anyway, yeah, subscribe if you like this kind of thing. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And was there anything else I had on the script? Yeah. Oh, and if you did like the format, maybe I'll make it a more regular thing with some of the other bikes that I've got in this garage. That was an important point that I missed. Right. Anyway, that's it. So subscribe, like, and comment, all that good stuff. I'm gonna go and buy a paddling pool, I think, and sit in it because it's really hot today. Right. Anyway, see you next time. Ciao.
It's the bonus clip time.
Now, other than frame flex and compliance, much of the comfort on a bike like that comes from saddle and tyre choice. It was not a comfortable bike by any stretch, but I think if I was to, you know, put my own saddle on there and run 28C tyres at a slightly lower pressure, it would be much more manageable. In fact, while I've been sat here editing this thing, I was a bit worried that maybe I was completely wrong and this bike was lovely to ride. But a fellow YouTuber whose video I watched yesterday, actually, I really respect his opinion. Nicholls came to a very similar conclusion. He said it was, yeah, super stiff and great in a straight line, but an incredibly harsh ride, and it didn't soak up any road buzz. So yeah, it's reassuring to know I'm not completely talking out of my arse, and other people share the same opinions. Oh, and the red nail polish, by the way, I do have a good reason for it, although I think it does look quite good. I was at an 80s tribute night last night, and I dressed up as a member of Duran Duran. Hence the rather fetching colour. Right, anyway, I'm going to get rid of this, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Right, ciao.